always got to check out Westminster Abbey when you're here. As a student of architecture, I can tell you that this is the finest example of English architecture in England. It was built in the early 1500s by master masons, and that's in the older, stonier sense of the word. This, although it may look similar, was actually built by a crazy person in the mid-1800s, and by that stage the masons were just the people who were stuffing coins in people's pockets and whispering in their ears. It's very shiny and kind of nice, which gives you the illusion that what goes on inside is shiny and nice, but of course it isn't. The true function of something is of course tested by looking at its results, not what it might appear to be on the surface. Back in 2016, I made a video called Measuring the Police State, where I chose a set route, 1 mile long, and I went along and I counted, I can't say it, so I counted, what did I count? I counted those to see how many there were. It was a benchmark of 20 on a random Tuesday morning in 2016. Today is actually Wednesday, but I don't think it will really matter. So I think I'll go up here. So we'll do this again for science. 9 years later, let's measure the state of the police. I think if you had asked me back in 2016, what would the police be like in 2025, I think I probably would have said that, you know, it was probably black helicopters and laser-guided drones, tanks, and maybe orders issued through loudspeaker. So I can only presume that's what it's like. So let's go up to Buckingham Palace and check out this dystopian future. There are a lot of American tourists here, and American tourists, they love England, and we love them because, you know, they're very, very nice people, unless you mention Donald Trump. It's like a hypnotically implanted code word that flips their personality, puts them in feral mode. Sensible middle-aged women may start primal screaming and trying to scale the fences and maybe tear all the statues down. What's that they say about civilization being nothing but a thin veneer? The first thing they do when they get here is they come to the King's house, even though they're not really supposed to like kings. In fact, we saw them protesting, right? They said, no kings. We heard them. And then we saw them go straight to the King's house and go, oh wow, that's awesome. But notice, I've been studying their behavior. Look at them. Even though King Charles's very existence is the proof that they were looking for of a deeply rooted, institutionalized fascist patriarchy, look at them. They're perfectly emulating the true English experience of having a deep distaste for the royal family's existence, yet resisting the urge to throw bricks at the windows. I doubt that was in the briefing document this morning, you know. Look out for deranged female king haters, you know, scaling the fences. And while you were listening to me rambling, I was counting the armed police, and there are 2.
I'm going to hit you if you do not move back.
cool guys. They got really good.
Do you remember 2016? I think back in 2016 we were still living in the security legacy of the Olympic Games, if you remember that. Plus there was a lot of dodgy stuff going on back then, like people doing peaceful bridge crossings. And of course the police are always theorizing. The things that they are generally worried about, I think, is called threat vector or something like that. The kinds of people that they used to be worried about are the kind of people that they now protect. And the kind of people that they're now worried about, seemingly people with English and British flags. Could you imagine the scene down here if a bunch of smelly lefties turned up and tried to tear the royal statues down, and then the football lads turned up? That would be I could tell you every YouTuber in the greater Manchester area would be down here on that day. So there were two at Buckingham Palace and only one at St James's Palace. So already 2016 is winning. I think back in 2016 I was becoming convinced that because we saw more and more police everywhere and the whole country seemed to be getting more high security, I kind of just figured that it would continue. And who could have imagined that the police would end up piling so many resources into combating thought crime, other than George Orwell, obviously. You know that whole thing about if all you've got is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail? Weirdly enough, I kind of feel a bit nostalgic about the hammers now, because, you know, although hammers are pretty nasty when they come knocking, at least you can see them and you can quantify them. You can actually avoid them if you really want to. But this new thing they're doing, this invisible scraping of the internet for all the social media, and no doubt they're using AI to do a thing called sentiment analysis, and that way they can filter and rank and work out who are the real thought criminals out there. And then they'll start planning quiet house calls to your home address to give you some impromptu behavioural counselling, let's call it that. Did you spot the armed ones? I did. It was kind of difficult because they were literally about 4'8", both of them. That is a good example of what the police do in physical Westminster nowadays, which is to sit on the fence. I do remember what it was like back in the good old days of like Occupy London, where it was the protesters on one side and the police on the other. And the police used to kettle people, you know, for hours and not let them leave. Whereas nowadays, it kind of feels different, doesn't it? It feels like it's the police that are getting kettled, and surrounding them, like on each side, are like the protest and the counter-protest. And the police are sort of physically and politically holding the middle ground. Their goal, I think, is to prevent either side from winning, to essentially freeze the whole thing in place, to give the state more time to maneuver and to plan for the next stage. I think they actually already know what's going to happen next. So that is data collection complete. And the data is quite revealing. It's a considerable reduction in what you could call visible blunt hammers. What do they replace them with? Something I keep thinking about are those police training videos. Do you remember seeing them, where they were essentially training police officers up on how to tackle Union Jack protesters? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but those training videos first emerged way before any of this hotel stuff started. So it's almost like they knew what was going to happen and they trained and prepared for it. But how could they know what was going to happen? Well, they took a lot of hammers off the street, and no doubt those resources that were freed up were piled into improving what you could call their open source intelligence capabilities, which is another way of saying lots of new shiny systems that are designed to predict your behavior. Because if they can predict what you're going to do, they can train and prepare. It's almost like they know what you're going to do before you even do, which is pretty scary. And that's the end of the video, but also the beginning.